Improper fractions and mixed numbers. We need to remember that improper fractions and mixed numbers are just two ways to name the same thing. With your improper fraction, you have a number where the numerator is larger than or equal to the denominator. Some examples of this are 9/5, 4/4, or 7/3. A mixed number is a number that has a whole number part and a fractional part. Some examples of this would be 1 2/3, 3 1/4, 4 1/2. Because they just name the same thing, we should be able to go back and forth from the mixed number to the improper fraction and then back. So if we start with our mixed number, 1 2/3, and we think about the picture, we have one whole, and then we have 2/3 of another whole shaded in. That's what that would look like. The question we want is, how many thirds is that? If we look at our whole, we notice that there are 3/3 in the whole. Okay. If we look at our fraction, we notice that there are 2/3 in the fraction, and then we just put those two pieces together, and we know that that is 5/3. So therefore, we have that 1 2/3 is equal to 5/3. In our second example, we have 3 1/4. The first thing we need to figure out is how many fourths there are in 3 wholes. Okay, and we do that. We notice that in each whole, there are going to be 4 pieces. And each of them is going to be 1/4. So we have 3 wholes times 4/4 in each whole. And that is going to give us 12/4 there. Okay. And then we know we have this extra little fourth hanging out here. And when we put the two of those together, 12/4 and 1/4, we get 13/4. So 3 1/4 is equal to 13/4. So if we want to know what 4 1/2 would be as an improper fraction, we need to answer the question, how many halves are we dealing with here? So we know our denominator is going to be 2 because we're thinking about halves. We want to think about how many halves are there in 4 wholes. Okay, each whole has 2 halves, so we think about 4 wholes times those 2 halves gives us 8 halves. If you think about the picture, here's our 4 wholes. Okay, each of them has 2 halves to it. Okay, so there's your 8 halves. And then we have one more half here. When we put 8 halves plus 1/2 together, we end up with 9 halves. So what I want you to do is go ahead and pause the video here and see if you can work out the answer for 3 1/5. Take a look at your work and compare it to my work. We know that each whole is going to be 5/5. When we have 3 of those put together, we end up with 15/5. Then we have 1 more fifth from our fractional part up above, and we end up with 16/5. We also need to go back in the other direction. We need to be able to change an improper fraction back to a mixed number. So in order to do this, we start with a fraction such as 9/5. Okay? We want to think about how many wholes we could get out of that. If we were going to take the 9/5 that we have and arrange them into a whole and then some parts, we can figure out what it is. So I know that I have 5/5, which is 1 whole. Okay? And then the part that would be left over would be 4/5. And then I put those two pieces together, and my answer here is 1 4/5. We also can remember that this fraction line really is another way of saying division. So if we're really unsure about what to do, we know that this problem is 9 divided by 5. Okay, and we can set that up. 9 divided by 5. Okay, 9 divided by 5, 5 goes in one time. I have 4 left. 1 with a remainder of 4. Okay, and we're going to remember that we're still dividing by 5 here. So we have 1 whole in our answer. We have 4 parts left over, and we were dividing by 5. And we still end up, obviously, with the same answer here. We should, because we started with the same fraction. We have 1 and 4/5. So strategy number 1 for doing 7/3, I think, how many whole parts can I take out of that? And I know that that's a 3/3 and another 3/3, that's 6/3, and then I have 1/3 left. Okay, so I'm going to repartition these 3/3 both as 1. That gives me 1, another 1, and a 1/3, which altogether is 2 and 1/3. Or I can take the second strategy of doing division, and I know that this is the same as 7 divided by 3. 3 goes into 7 2 times, okay, and then 3 times 2 is 6. I have 1 left over, and then I just remember that I have 2, and I have 1 part left over, and I'm still dividing by 3, and we get the same answer in both cases. What I would like for you to do now is to try this one out for 15/4 and see what you come up with. Pause the video here, and then you can go back and check your work. So here I noticed that I took out 4/4 1, 2, 3 times. That's 3 wholes, and then I still have this 3/4, so I get 3 and 3/4. Or if I use the division method, like down below, if I do 15 divided by 4, I get 3 as my whole number quotient, and then I had 3 as my remainder, and I'm still dividing by 4, so 4 becomes my denominator. And that's your review on improper fractions and mixed numbers. You can always go back and watch it again from the beginning, make up some problems for yourself to solve and have your parents check them, or bring them into class and I'll be happy to go over them with you.